So hello everyone, my name is Anaïs and I am the FARMD Community of Practice Analyst. I wish you all a very happy International Women's Day and I welcome you all to our webinar that will be dedicated to private sector engagement in IFAD, Perspectives from Programme Management Units. This webinar is co-organized and promoted by the IFAD's Inclusive Rural Finance Network and FARMD, which is hosted by the Platform for Agricultural Risk Management, PARM. As usual, I inform you that this session is recorded and will be then available on replay on our website and social media. This webinar is a roundtable in which the panelists will answer targeted questions, but you are more than welcome to ask your questions using the chat box that you will find on the bottom of your screen. And also, please remember that at the end of this webinar, you will see a box appearing on your screen. This is an automatic survey for you to give us some feedback about the webinar. Also now I will share with you the link to our FARMD Community of Practice, which is an interactive space where practitioners from all around the world can exchange and receive peer-to-peer support on agricultural risk management. And of course, I will also share with you the link to the Inclusive Rural Finance Community of Practice. And so we highly encourage you to join us there to keep on the conversation going. And now, without further ado, I will leave you the floor to our moderator, Enrico Protomastro. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Anaïs, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Enrico. I'm a IFAD Program Officer, and I will be moderating this webinar. And the event will give us the opportunity to hear really from PMU, Project Management Unit representative who will share their views of engaging with the private sector, especially challenges and opportunities during the implementation of IFAD-funded programs. The webinar will be also joined by Boston Consulting Group representatives who are currently undertaking a corporate review of the current IFAD private sector strategy. The event will be structured in this way. There will be a brief introduction from my colleague Julia from PI about the private sector strategy 2025-2035 that is currently under design. And then we will interview our panelists. There will be a roundtable with three panelists coming from 3 different regions. Dr. Nisreen Melad Awad, who is a professor of agricultural economics at the Agricultural Research Center in Cairo. And she is also a marketing consultant within the PMU of the IFAD-funded project Sahel in Egypt. Mr. Michael Mbulo, the program coordinator of the IFAD-funded project RUFEP in Zambia, and Dr. Seriki Musa, who is the Rural Finance Officer of the ongoing IFAD-funded project VCDP in Nigeria. And as also mentioned by Anaïs, you will have also the opportunity to interact with our panelists during a 10 minutes Q&A session. So over to Julia for the quick introduction.
Thank you very much, Enrico and Anaïs, for the introduction. I'm part of the private sector strategy team, so great pleasure to be here. And just a few words from my side to briefly introduce the context. Anaïs, if you could kindly share the slides.
It's coming now.
Thank you very much. So we're here today as we are keen to hear from the PMUs and learn from your insights and experience to ensure your work addresses the needs and the reality they face every day. And in that light, let me briefly introduce the context. Since 2019, IFAD's private sector engagement has intensified with the main objective to scale up impact and benefits to IFAD's target group by leveraging private sector finance, know-how, and innovation. And since 2019, IFAD's private sector this engagement has been guided by its 2019 to 2024 private sector engagement strategy, which is expiring at the end of this year. And and this is basically the socioeconomic context. A global pandemic, rising conflicts, and frequent climate-related shocks have slowed growth, widened inequalities, and risen concerns about food security. In this context, as well as the internal evolution of the organization, IFAD is in the process of developing currently a new private sector engagement strategy, which will have the duration of 2025 to 2035, as Enrico also said, and to better support the transformation of rural economies and food systems, making them more inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. Next slide, please. We would like, obviously, to hear from you. So to inspire the conversation, we provided also some guiding questions on the role that the private sector should be playing, on untapped opportunities for more engagement that you would want to highlight, to hear about your experiences as PMUs in terms of challenges faced during the project cycle, the types of project you see that would need to be implemented to crowd in more private sector investment, and from a more forward-looking view, what to prioritize in the strategy to help deliver impact and cross-cutting priorities. Without further ado, I'm going to hand back to Enrico to guide us through these questions for a certainly inspiring and informative session. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Julia. And yeah, I will now ask this question to our panelists that will give us some perspective from their day-to-day implementation in the project they implement. So the first one is, if you currently see an important role of the private sector which is played in the project that you implement, and how this in case if this is confirmed, deliver more impact and address the challenges that your projects face.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
In our program in Nigeria, Valuation Development Program, Additional Finance Phase, we work with a number of private sector. One of them, the off-taker, Olam Nigeria Limited. They have provided a lot of important role as a private sector. One of the key important roles they provide sustainable access to markets for our farmers. Another one they are able to do is that they also provide quality input for our farmers, and also they also have provided private extension services. And we also work with financial institutions like Lipo Microfinance Bank, who are also providing financial services and products for our farmers. In terms of what they should have been able to do, if not all the farmers have the ability to pay the matching grant, because the program is being implemented by matching grant approach, in which farmers pay a certain amount of money and the program also match granted. Through our working with off-taker do normally pay matching grant on behalf of the farmers, and they do a form of a buyback at the end of the day. And this has created a lot of impact on parts of the farmer in terms of access to assets. They have improved access, they have improved in quality of food security, income, and other things at the like. If not because of the partnership and the relationship the program is having with Olam, they will not be able to pay for their matching grant. So be that as it's made, they've able to help us solve a lot of challenges as regard providing for input, providing money for the farmers to pay for their input under the matching grant. And it's helped us to address a lot of challenges of farmers not able to have money to pay the matching grant. Thank you very much.
Thanks to you, Musa, for your really perspective. Any other panelists would like to intervene on this subject?
Yes, I think from the Rural Finance Expansion Program in Zambia, what we see, what has been the role of the private sector really is that through working with RUFA, by the way, supports financial institutions or financial players to get their financial services to rural areas. And we have seen that through engaging with partnering with different partners in the private sector, we've been able to leverage on resources. Clearly, especially in the banking sector or the financial sector, the resources are really with the banking sector or the financial sector. So through that, we've been able to reach out to more clients than we had actually planned. And the private sector also comes in with technology and innovation. They do quite invest a lot in that for them to be able to reduce their costs, reduce the risk. Risk is a big thing in the financial sector. So anything that reduces risk comes in very, very, very popular, if you want. And through that, we've been able not only to reach out to many more clients or beneficiaries, we've been able to reach deeper, go into deeper areas, because sometimes or most of the time the challenge is actually the infrastructure. They're not able to provide financial resources or credit services or savings because there are no roads, or appropriate infrastructure, but through digital financial services, for example, we've been able to reach out to many more clients. And from the clientele or beneficiary point of view, we found out that they've actually been able to reduce on the amount of time they spend, for example, in savings groups, trying to count money and keep records, because that comes with the innovation that comes with the bank. And as a result of that, the other impact that comes through is that we find that, for example, women clients are able to have more time, not only to spend with the business, looking at how they can support or expand the business, but also having quality time with their families, because now instead of spending 3 hours in a meeting, they basically do 10 minutes or 20 minutes, they are done with the meeting, and they have done the transactions and gotten the loan or done the savings. Thank you.
Michael, thank you so much for sharing your experience from the Zambia Project Management Unit, let's say, perspective. I will now ask a second question. If, in your opinion, there are untapped opportunities in engaging with the private sector along the project implementation, along IFAD project implementation, also at the country program level. Over to you.
Thank you very much. One of the highest untapped opportunity that will result by engaging more private sector is what is called sustainable agribusiness models. What do I mean by sustainable agribusiness model is that IFAD as a program has been able to have a lot of strategy they have used in the past, community-driven approach and the likes. But in having the strategy to be sustainable, like what we are doing in VCDP AF, we are working with private sector. At the end of the program, the model will continue to work. Why am I saying the model will continue to work? We have a strategy called Commodity Alliance Forum, in which all the private actors continue to work with the farmers organization at the end of the program. We have the input dealer, we have the off-taker, we have the financial institution, we have the big processors, we have the mechanization service provider. So if the program closes, all these actors will continue to work under our strategy called Commodity Alliance Forum. Not only that, if we work with more private sector, there will be a lot of results in a turnaround time that is not so much. What do I mean by that? If I'm a private extension agent, I work with farmers. I can easily have their data. If I have their data, I conduct a need assessment. I can approach IFAD, I can approach World Food Programme to support the farmer. So what am I trying to say is that the more we work with the private sector, the more we are going to have sustainable agricultural demand in the operation for productivity, for access to income, for food security. Thank you very much.
Thanks to you, Musa. I just was wondering if also maybe Nizreen Melad wanted to add something, our third panelist. Otherwise, I will move to a third question.
Perhaps I could just add one.
Sure, Michael.
One intervention which I think is very important. We are seeing it becoming more and more relevant now with climate change in the financial sector. I think the whole idea of insurance and risk management. I think if we, through the IFAD programs, we're able to support, we're able to work with private insurance companies to be able to provide insurance to smallholder farmers, that enables them to actually be able to access financial services, and we then are able to support them to be able to guard against risks, which in this case, I think climate change, I'm sure you're aware, we are having a serious drought just now here in Zambia, and farmers, grew their crops and everything is gone to waste. And other than those that were supported by the government through a compulsory insurance, the rest of the private farmers that did not access anything from the government are going to lose their crop, and hence hunger and all that. So I think I see insurance and risk management as being an area that we need to tap. We didn't do much in that during the RUFEP implementation time.
Great, thank you so much, Michael. I will now move to the third question. Did you experience any challenges along the project life cycle to crowd in additional private sector co-financing?
Yes. Can I go on?
Sure,
We
Musa.
encounter a number of challenges. Challenges is part of project implementation, and we have to provide a solution to it. We had a memorandum of understanding with Duffield, Wema Bank, and VCDP on cassava value chain financing. The challenge we have is that the partnership will have scaled through, and we will have a lot of solution to cassava value chain financing in VCDP. But because we have not been able to engage high-level engagement of the decision-making of the Wema Bank in Nigeria, that's led to the problem that we have not been able to find a solution to that problem. What am I saying in a regard? We will have been able to mobilize a lot of co-financing to that partnership. But because we are not able to have a high-level engagement with Wema Bank Nigeria Limited to provide the finance, Duffield Nigeria Limited provided a collateral. But the collateral they provided, Wema Bank said that it's not enough. But we are hearing it at the end of the program, at the end of the relationship that could not materialize. So it's a big problem. Not only that, on the part of the government, there are lots of bureaucracy to get things done, part of the program management sometimes. Because decision has to be taken when you are talking to a private sector. A private sector is somebody that turns around things in very little time. But with government, there is a lot of bureaucracy. And lastly, we need a lot of resources in order to engage, but the resources are not there. If the resources are there, we can crowd in a lot of private sector support to donor-funded program like IFAD in Nigeria. Thank you.
All right, many thanks, Musa. To our panelists, what are the type of project and stages in the value chain where, in your opinion, are suitable for IFAD to mobilize even more private sector investment or more easily?
Can I come in?
Sure, Musa.
Thank you very much. One of the project type that I felt that we need to mobilize more private sector finance, into it. Credit and Financial Services Program, 1, Agricultural Development Program, 2, Rural Development Program, and Industrial Development Program. These 4 programs are very key for private sector financing. And in talking about the stage of the value chain that is being required, we will actually need them in production and in processing. What I mean by that is both production at the farmers level and at the value additional level. And in terms of the region that I felt that we need it more is West and Central Africa. Thank you very much.
Thanks to you, Musa. Let me wait also if other panelists would like to intervene on this.
Okay. Go ahead, Sri, if you want.
احنا في مجموعة مشاريع عندنا في مصر في سلاسل القيمة نقدر نشتغل عليها، زي مشاريع التسمين الإنتاج الحيواني والداجني، فيها وفرات سعة، بس أهم حاجة إن احنا نقدر نغطي وفرات السعة، يبقى وفرات سعة كبيرة ذات ساعات إنتاجية. احنا حاليا في مصر موجود عندنا وفرات السعة كلها صغيرة، احنا محتاجين وفرات سعة كبيرة.
Okay, I'll come in here. So Nisreen is now telling us about the opportunities available within the agricultural sector. From experience, already there are private sector projects, local projects operating in different areas, including in livestock, for instance. But the issue is that they do not have sufficient capacities in terms of the scale of operation whereby they can actually cater for the market. So there is opportunity there for additional private sector investment. They see a lot of opportunity in areas where there already there are operators not only in livestock, but where there could be additional private sector intervention. Over.
Thank you so much for this, really.
عندنا كمان مشاريع احنا نقدر ندخل في التصنيع الزراعي زي تقطير وتجفيف النباتات الطبية والعطرية، تصنيع المركزات، مصانع مركزات إذا كان طماطم أو عصائر، تصنيع الألبان، تصنيع وتجفيف الخضروات والفاكهة. احنا كمان نقدر نرفع كفاءة الطاقة الإنتاجية للمشاريع ذات الطاقات الإنتاجية المتوسطة والصغيرة لطاقات إنتاجية كبيرة.
Sorry, I'm from my phone, so I just had to click on the. You can hear me now, right?
Yes.
Another area she's speaking about processing, where there are two levels in terms of having additional investments in the processing of agricultural products across fruits and vegetables and aromatic and medicinal crops in particular. And there is also not only room for expanding production, but also in introducing innovative technologies that would enhance productivity. Over.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Zainab, also for the translation. I'm aware it's not easy. I don't know if Michael also want to add something or.
No, I think mine is similar. I was going to basically suggest that an area where we need to focus on is anything around the agricultural supply sort of chains. I think an investment in that space would be useful for IFAD to be able to mobilize more resources just along the value chain in terms of supply, which I think a point has been already mentioned by my colleagues.
Thank you so much, Mike, to all the panelists. Maybe if I can also add a Central Asian perspective, considering that I'm also, I'm covering the implementation of IFAD program in Central Asia. Like in Uzbekistan, for instance, we saw a lot of opportunities to intervene in the processing stage of the value chain in the dairy subsector, because in Uzbekistan, differently from other contexts, putting together several farmers into cooperatives or producers groups is extremely challenging. So what we do, it's aggregating milk production in the so-called milk collection center. And we also interact with private sector entities like, for instance, Lactalase, to really, creating a kind of a partnership with them and push them to buy this the milk from this milk collection center that otherwise could not be done with every single, let's say, farmer. So from the Central Asian perspective, we have been experiencing the dairy value chain as a suitable one for IFAD with investing in the future for private sector engagement. So we'll now move to the fifth question. We are almost at the end. So of the second part of our webinar. So what should IFAD prioritize under its new private sector strategy to help you deliver greater impact, while focusing on cross-cutting priorities such as support to youth, women, climate, nutrition, and biodiversity?
Yeah, I think maybe let me talk about two things I think are very important. One is I think we need to invest more in monitoring and evaluation systems. This is regarding the private sector. This is, I think we found implementing with different financial institutions is an area of weakness for them in terms of the sort of information that we want to collect from the financial institutions. They're happy to be able to tell you how many loans they've given out and to who, If you're lucky, maybe they can tell you if it's a woman and a man. Basically, that's the end. Beyond that, I think they see it as a cost. So we need to engage with the private sector to be able to support them, to develop capacities around monitoring and evaluation, which means that even as we design our programs as IFAD, we need to put resources in the M&E, not only for the PMU, but I think even if you're going to support a particular provider, in this case, if you're working through a partner, I think we need to put aside resources to be able to help the partner to appreciate and be able to come out with systems that can collect information that goes beyond just giving for example, if it's a loan, just knowing that one person has got a loan and they've got a business, but what does that business do to that individual's family, and what is changing? I think we need to do that. Quickly, I think the next one would be targeting, I think, the youth. In Zambia, I think we have a serious, probably most of Africa, we have quite a large population of the youth that are unemployed. They do not have skills, they do not have jobs. And I think it's something that, as IFAD, if we are to remain relevant, we need to develop programs that respond. So we should be talking around teaching these people, giving them skills, giving them knowledge on how to actually access finance, and giving them knowledge on being able to navigate themselves around the job market. I think those are the two that I can share for now. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Michael, for this really precious experience that you shared.
احنا برضو من اولوياتنا. Hello?
Yes, please, Nazreen.
Hello?
احنا من اولويات مصر دعم الشباب، بس هيبقى عن طريق التصنيع الزراعي والفاليو اد، وبرضو المناخ، تغيرات المناخ مهمة جدا عندنا في مصر وليها تأثير كبير على القطاع الزراعي، وده طبعا عن طريق إدارة المخاطر وكيفية التكيف مع المناخ الفترة اللي جاية.
طيب انا هعمل تدخل دلوقتي عشان ما انساش الكلام اللي انت قلتيه، معلش.
اوكي تمام.
So basically the priorities are seen across two levels. With respect to youth engagement, yes, there's a big opportunity for that and a big need for that, but from a practical perspective on the ground, that can be achieved through further work on value-adding activities across the value chain, and also with respect to natural resource protection. There is a lot of need for that in Egypt to address issues related to climate change, with the water scarcity and with the increases in temperature. So innovation in these areas are highly needed. I'll see if there is more that you would like to add. محتاجة تضيفي حاجة يا أستاذة نسرين ولا خلاص؟
ممكن كمان نضيف عن طريق سلاسل القيمة، عن طريق برضو المرأة الريفية، نرفع من قيمة المرأة الريفية عن طريق دعمها دعم المرأة الريفية عن طريق عايزة أقول إن هي تدخل عن طريق برضو التصنيع الزراعي، الفاليو اد، المنتجات الزراعية للمرأة الريفية.
Okay, and the same with respect to the integration of women within the value chain, including and encouraging and promoting women's participation in value-adding activities and productive in terms of agribusiness activities. That is the recommendation. Over.
Many thanks. Maybe if I can ask a follow-up question, what kind of incentives will keep the youth on farms?
The question again?
what kind of incentives will keep the youth on their activities in the agriculture? I mean, according to what he says, is really, yeah.
If
As
you
business.
promote more technology, the use of technology, they will be embraced by the youth. If you also promote labor-saving equipment, they will be embraced by the youth. And if you also promote finance that is not high in terms of interest rate, what I'm trying to say, it makes a well-youth developed financial product that suits their needs, that doesn't require much in terms of contribution and high interest rate. So the youth will engage. The youth will engage more. The use of technology, low-cost saving equipment, access to quality finance acceptable to the youth. They will embrace agriculture more. And training and capacity building. Training and capacity building will also add a lot of value to them because of their own level of education and understanding. Thank you, over.
Many thanks, Musa. You've been great. Like I mean, we collected several feedbacks from 3 different countries, 3 different regions. So I think it was very enriching your testimony and this discussion. I will now open, let's say, the Q&A session. If our colleagues also other, let's say, members of the webinar would like to share some some additional question. We had other 20 minutes, so I think that there could be a nice follow-up discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Enrico, I don't know if you saw, but on the chat there are a few people who already sent their questions. I think Mark, you also wrote one. Do you want to share it, Mark? Your question? I can say it for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so Mark asked, what are effective ways of incentivizing PS private sector participation in the absence of much grant funding? I guess either you, Musa, Michael, or Nesrin can go ahead, or all of you can go ahead and give your answer.
Well, I guess outside matching grant funding, the private sector, I think we need to engage them. They need to be engaged in terms of the activities that they are doing. They must have an opportunity to be able to engage with, to be able to link, to be able to engage with the government authorities that make, for example, the regulations and the policies. So if they are part of that structure, that actually helps to come up with the different rules and regulations that are set for the private sector. That's one way that we are able to engage them. Another one is to be able to, I think, communicate clearly with the private sector regarding some of the government regulations and policies that are being developed to support them. I think sometimes we go ahead and make regulations and then to discover that actually that's not conducive, it's not supportive to the sector. So I think if we do that, rather than providing matching grants, we'll be able to actually attract them, to be able to release their resources, release their technology, to be able to support the activity that we're involved in this case for ourselves is the financial sector, ensuring that financial services get into the rural area.
Thank you very much. Mr. Michael is right for that proposition, because if you give a private sector tax exemption, it will support more of the agricultural development and other things like that. I'm in support of what you say. If matching grant is not there, tax exemption and other things Michael said will suffice for the private sector to work with the smallholder farmer. Thank you very much. Over.
Thank you so much, Musa. I also saw that one question was already answered by Enrique, one coming from Laura. So I will now pass maybe.
احنا ممكن ندعم الشباب من خلال نديهم قرض بس بطرق ميسرة بدون إجراءات معقدة بنسبة فايدة قليلة يقدروا يسدوها في مدى قصير مع فترة سماح وده طبعا من أجل التصنيع والتصدير، يعني هيبقى الهدف التصنيع من أجل التصدير.
طيب أنا هدخل رد على أترجم الكلام. Nisreen is confirming what has been raised by our distinguished panelists, and she's adding the importance of having easier access to markets for the private sector to engage and to reduce the requirements and the bureaucracy, as well as to provide incentives, as well as when it comes to rural finance, have less bureaucratic and easier procedures for them to access finance. So it's she's confirming on the same points that have been raised so far. Over.
Many thanks. I also saw that there is an intervention from in the chat from Gatane. It's a question, but also, let's say, a comment. He thinks that there are two issues which are critical in attracting private sector in East Africa, especially mentions Ethiopia: better enabling environment, government-backed MFIs enjoy lots of subsidies and dominate 85% of the market, where private actors could not easily compete. And the second challenge is the private sector would like to intervention to de-risk financing in rural areas, especially remote areas, rural areas where infrastructure are very poor, and also women, youth skills, BDS, to make them more credit-worthy. So I was wondering if the panelists could also share this vision or maybe challenging it. What do they think?
The question again, sorry?
It's what basically Gatane was highlighting as two challenges. So the first one is better enabling environment, where private sector could not easily compete in certain kind of environment, and when the private sector would like to de-risk financing in rural areas to say on projects where there are a bit credit risk. There are more credit worthy. Sorry.
Okay. Actually, when you talk about finance in the rural area, the government should not put much subsidy. If not, it will be very difficult for the financial institution to compete. What am I trying to say? It will crowd in a lot of finances, and those private sector will not be able to break even. And they need to break even because they have other things to maintain. They have to pay their staff. They have to maintain their offices and the rest. And if a lot of subsidies is being in the rural area, they will not be able to work. So government, the amount they normally put in the rural area in terms of access to finance, they should make it more competitive, especially financial institutions, the microfinance, agriculture, or to the micro enterprises. But if subsidy is too much, subsidy cannot continue to, it not be sustainable for long. After some time, government will not be able to fund it again. So why don't you leave it to make it open for the private sector, like the rural finance institution, to compete with them in terms of low interest rate, middle interest rate, and the rest, and for the farmers and the other micro enterprises to access their services rather than subsidy alone. Subsidy cannot be sustainable. It cannot stay for long. It's only for a short while. They can use it to develop in terms of capacity. But after that, they should allow the private sector to work with it. Like what we are doing in VCDP, we do support my farmers on the matching grant. After the 2 years, we stop it. Why? We have built their capacity. We have taught them financial literacy training. We have linked them to financial institutions. We told them to access finance. That's much better. It will encourage them to be self-independent and not to depend on government subsidy for long. It makes them redundant, looking for subsidy everywhere, and you cannot use subsidy to run your business. You are an agri-entrepreneur, you are an agri-business, you need to work with all the value chain actors. So government support and sound of subsidy can only come to build capacity for a very short time. That one is the best model. Thank you. Over.
Yeah, I agree with Musa. And clearly from the question, you can see that the subsidized MFIs are the ones that are reaching out to and obviously outcompeting the private sector for obvious reasons. I think what is important, for example, in the case of RUFEP, we spent quite a bit of resources and time and energy to support partners to develop various products which are suitable for the rural folk. There's been some access to that, but we feel that there is more that is to be done. For example, we think that it's not enough just to develop the product. It's important that we ensure that that product is actually accessed, and to be able to access, we need to be able to support the entrepreneur to be ready to actually access that product, because usually that is a problem. Most people cry that there's no access to credit, but there's actually credit. The only challenge is that the entrepreneur or the beneficiary is not ready to be able to access that credit. For example, unless you are accessing a government subsidy program, you'll be required to be formal, to register yourself in one way or another, either a cooperative or a small micro enterprise. That's the only way that the bank can engage you. Otherwise, you do not exist as a business. If you are just a business name, you need to. If you're just an entrepreneur without actually being registered, and also that goes with supporting them to be able to understand the importance of keeping records. We did a survey recently, which was just launched a few weeks ago, and most of small and micro entrepreneurs, when I asked why they do not keep records, they basically said, "Well, I know everything. I keep everything in my head." Okay, so it's not important that I register. Well, which is fine, but I mean, we have to get into that head for us to know that you are actually an entrepreneur, you own so many businesses, and you are not a risk. So I think we need to put some energy, to put some resources to support the entrepreneur, the smallholder farmer, to be ready to actually receive the loan.
Thanks, Michael. I will wait a bit to see if Nazreen also would like to intervene on this.
يا أستاذة، حابة تتكلمي على المخاطر اللي بتواجه المستثمرين لو حابة، أو المزارعين في إن هم اتكلموا على الحتتين، فلو أنت حابة ممكن تتكلمي على ده.
اوكي. بالنسبه للمخاطر اللي بتواجه المزارعين او المستثمرين، فتره هم بياخدوا فتره ضمان او فتره لاسترداد القرض، فهم بيبقى عايزين المده بتبقى اطول شويه، وفي نفس الوقت بيبقى هم طالبين بيانات وطلبات كتيره جدا 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 جدا، وطالبين منهم اصول وبيانات من المزارعين ان هم يقدروا، في منهم البطاقه الزراعيه واصول الارض، وفي بعض المزارعين ما بيبقاش عندهم، بيبقى مستاجرين فما بيقدروش يدخلوا وياخدوا قرض من البنك. وفي نفس الوقت بيبقى احنا عايزين لو هيبقى في ضمان اكتر، بيبقى ضمان تسويق المحصول، في بعض المزارعين ما بيلاقوش تسويق للمحصول غير عن طريق السماسرة والتجار المحليين، فبيضطروا ان هم يبيعوا بسعر اقل. لما بيبيعوا بسعر اقل بيخسروا عائد كان راجع لهم.
اوكي. خليني أترجم الكلام ده. So basically, Nesreen is speaking more about the challenges facing the agribusinesses and the smallholders to access finance because of the procedures. It's most of the cases they do not have any collateral. So I think what she's saying resonates with what has been mentioned earlier with respect to the need to work with the smallholders and with the agribusinesses in raising their capacities, and at the same time finding the types of streamlining procedures in a way that would be accessible for them, because there are so many challenges with respect to ownership of land, with the fact that many smallholders have to go through traders that do not necessarily provide them with the right prices, and the type of abuse that is sometimes happens within the market with traders. So it is the formalization, supporting these smallholders and agribusinesses in formalizing their activities in order to be able to have better access to finance. So it goes both ways. From her angle, there is work that needs to be done with the microcredit providers, and also work with the agribusinesses and with the smallholders themselves. Over.
في كمان من ضمن المخاطر ان بعض المزارعين بالنسبه للانتاج الحيواني بيفقدوا رؤوس الماشيه، بتتوفى، فما بياخدوش بالنسبه لها. البنك طبعا ما بيديلهمش اي تعويض للفاقد ده، وبيضطروا ان هم يدفعوا قيمه القرض اللي هم بياخدوه، فبالتالي بيتحملوا الخساره مرتين، القرض بفوائده وفي نفس الوقت خسارتهم للماشيه.
Okay. Another very interesting point has to do with the risks that farmers go through while, for instance, especially with livestock, for example, because they do not have appropriate support and extension services. So when they lose these livestock, or when they lose their crops, and they have the losses doubled, they cannot, because they have to repay the loan, and at the same time they have lost their capital. So this raises the need to have further capacity building and extension availed to them. Over.
Thank you so much. We have other questions, so let's see if we are able to take all of them. So one is directly addressed to Musa, from Mr. Ben Joshua from Nigeria. What is IFAD and your project VCDP doing differently to improve access to credit to rural farmers, to poor rural farmers?
Thank you very much. The program is working on two
تمام كده زي الفل.
is...
هو عشان الوقت فاضل، الوقت قليل، لو هنعمل تدخل او حاجه نعمل واحد، يعني اختاري قولي لي لما يبقى حابه انك تتدخلي في حاجه كمان. خلاص.
Zainab, you're on. Put your phone on mute.
I'm sorry.
The program is working on two value chain crops, which is cassava and rice. What we are doing differently is that we have been able to develop products along the rice and cassava value chain. We'll be piloting this product in this 2024. That's one of the things we are doing differently. We are also trying to ensure that most of our financial institutions have the capacity to access venture capital, to access green finance fund. But what do they need? Do we have the right infrastructure? Do we have the right management? Do we have the right board and the management to be able to manage this finance? So if we are able, if these two things are in place that we are pursuing in 2024, it's one of the things that we are doing differently. What do I mean by that? Product for rice producer, for processor, for marketer, product for cassava producer, processor, and marketer, and ability of our financial institution to access venture capital and different kinds of funds by having the requirement to online to the beneficiary. Those are the two key things that we are doing differently for that program. Thank you. Over.
Thank you so much, Musa. I will move to another question to all the panelists now. It's actually one that we have already touched upon, but if you have something else to add, also beyond the value chains that your project is currently supporting, the question is, there are value chains, in your opinion, that that you find easier to engage with private sector?
Okay.
I mean, to have this kind of private sector engagement in certain and selected value chain in your experience.
Okay.
Are there any, or if you want to add something that we already actually discussed about this during the...
No, not on my side. No, not on my side. Thank you. Over.
Michael, Nazreen, I don't know if you want to take this one. Otherwise...
بالنسبة لهنا عندنا في مصر. هلو.
أنا معاكي سامعينك يا أستاذ، اتفضلي.
أوكي. بالنسبة لسلاسل القيمة هنا في مصر، إحنا للأسف في مصر ما عندناش سلاسل قيمة من البداية للنهاية. إحنا سلاسل القيمة بتنحصر ما بين المزارعين وتجار الجملة والوسطاء. ما بينهم يعني بناخد المزارع بيدي لتجار الجملة والوسطاء، والوسطاء بياخدوا ويدوا للمصدرين. التصنيع قليل جدا. اغلب محاصيل الزراعيه بتتصدر للخارج بدون فاليو اد، بدون قيمه مضافه.
طب خليني انا هقول، بس خليكي، هم عايزين يعرفوا كمان نوع السلاسل الانتاج اللي ممكن يبقى فيها opportunities، يعني يبقى فيها فرص. بس انا خليني اترجم الحته دي.
طيب اوكي.
So basically, very quickly, let me translate. Nasreen is saying that again, a big issue with in Egypt with the agricultural sector is that there is very little work being done on the value chains. All the work is usually that the farmers sell their produce to traders, and then it goes either to market or it's exported eventually as without a lot of value-adding activities. And now she'll speak about the areas where there is potential, the value chains where there is potential work. اتفضلي يا أستاذ.
عندنا من بعض المحاصيل اللي موجودة عندنا هنا في مصر اللي نقدر نعمل لها فاليو اد وبتتصدر كمواد خام، النباتات الطبية والعطرية. عندنا برضو الخضر والفاكهة بتتصدر كمواد خام. احنا ممكن نقدر نعمل للنباتات الطبية والعطرية تجفيف وتقطير وتصنيع كامل. احنا بنستورده، احنا بنصدره خام، وبنستورد المواد دي للتصنيع الطبي.
خليني طب كملي معلش.
اوكي. بالنسبه للخضروات، احنا عندنا الطماطم ممكن تتصدر صلصه او تتصدر مركزات، وكذلك الفاكهه، وممكن تجفيف طماطم كمان وفاكهه. بالنسبه عندنا برضو تصنيع الالبان.
خليني معلش اكمل هنا. So basically what she's saying that the medicinal and aromatic area, there is a lot of room for value adding, because already we have some experience in exporting them, but as without value adding interventions. Also with the vegetables, there are tomatoes and also with dairy products. These are the key sectors where there is a view that there is room for interventions by the private sector.
Private sector.
Many thanks. I'm also conscious of the time. Actually, it was a very rich session, and I want to thank also the organizer for this, and especially the panelists for their enthusiasm. Really, like, it was very enriching, and we had other questions, and so I would suggest also the participants to maybe directly write them at I will share, of course, the email on the chat, but info@farm d.org. The additional one that unfortunately due to time constraints we could not, and the panelists could not answer. So let me thank you again all for your participation. Also PharmD, PARM, Pi, Julia, Anais, Mark, all the panelists. Really was it was a very great session, and enjoyed the rest and the weekend basically, or Friday. And we will see each other probably soon for another event. So over to Anais, maybe if you want to say.
You basically said everything. As I said, I just wrote an email where you can send your questions, and we will try to answer all of them by reaching to the panelists again. And yeah, thank you all to the panelists, of course, to you, Julia, Mark, and you, Enrico. And as I said at the beginning, once the webinar will end, you will see appear a survey, and it's always really helpful if we can help us to improve, so that the next webinar are even better. So please try and stay for 1 more minute to answer the survey, and maybe we will meet soon, I hope. Thank you all, and have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.